So, for instance, the chauffeur who picked me up at the airport in Harrisburg and drove me an hour inward to this place right near Camp David, this person was the head of cybersecurity in New York after 9/11 and was the personal chauffeur for Ishtak Rabin. If I'm pronouncing that, his mother may pronounce it better than me. Whenever he'd come to New York, to the United Nations, because, you know, in these 20-car, what do you call those, caravans where they motorcade, you're not supposed to know which one he's riding in, but he knew that if she was the driver, if things went south, he knew that she knew how to get him to safety. That's how good she was in security. Well, this is a group of people that I was invited to go be with last July. In fact, here's something that you just need to know. It's not a small matter that our cell phones listen to every word we say. So when we all gathered out into to talk, we all had to leave our cell phones in the house. And we sat out in a field in a group of chairs. Well, each person brought each other person up to date about what they've been learning and going through and studying and working on since the last time they had met. They meet a couple times a year. So in the midst of this is July, in the midst of this, we're sitting around just kind of like we are now. We're about to eat, and one of the guys hands me a cell phone, and he says, "Hey, isn't this guy from your parish?" Turns out it was on Monsignor Burrell. And it had just come out, called Grindergate, so now he's called Monsignor Grinder. And he said, "I just wonder if your bishop is going to treat him the same," because he's from my diocese. "I wonder if your bishop is going to treat him the same way that he treated you." And what happened immediately thereafter is Bishop sends out a letter to all the priests. "Well, we don't know if it's true, but let's pray for our brother." He never sent something out like that with regard to me. I'm not bitter. I'm just saying this gives you a sense of what we're dealing with. So sure enough, Monsignor he goes off. He's been missing for like 10 months, MIA. And in the midst of this time, I come to understand. You can fact check me on it. They're being very secretive about it, but they usually send priests off to a place like St. Luke's. I think that's in Philadelphia. It's like $40,000 a month. He's gone for 6 months. $250,000 is spent trying to fix him from what he was up to. Which my main objection, apart from many, is that why in the world, Monsignor, would you go to these bathhouses in Vegas? Because we know since San Francisco in the 80s, you go to those places that are like petri dishes of bad diseases. But that was Monsignor Burrell. So anyway, and the big news now, of course, this just happened in this past weekend, that bishop has now put him into a parish, as pastor of a parish, about 12 miles down the road from where my parish is. And the people around the globe, because this story has gone that far, but certainly in my diocese, the people are enraged. That first of all, that he would do that, but he would do it in light of what he's done to me, but that they would do it in the first place. Because listen, if you're a dad and you have, I don't know, a 14-year-old boy, are you going to bring him to that parish? How divisive can you be? You've just destroyed that parish, Bishop Callahan. How brainless and out of touch can you possibly be? So anyway, in the midst of this, discussing I wonder if Bishop's going to do the same thing to him as he did to you, I thought, okay, these guys know. Because I could tell you a whole bunch of other things that they knew that educated me and how much they know about the corruption and the rot in our hierarchy. So I said to him, okay, I just need to know. What percentage of our bishops are homosexuals? And I'm thinking to myself, oh, please, God, let it not be 50%. I don't want to hear 40%. That's just too big of a number. Maybe it could just be something palatable. Maybe only 25% and there's hope. But let it be not above 50. And without blinking an eye, they said 88%. Yeah, I know, same reaction. And I said, hold on here. No way. I said, if you would have said 50%, I would have said, no, I can't accept that number. It's too high. No. I said, if you would have said even 80%, I would have said, you're off your rocker. There's no way it could be that high. Maybe it's above 50, but sure as heck it's not 80%. But you have told me 88%. I don't believe it. And they said, very calmly and matter-of-factly, oh no, Father, we have dossiers on every single one of them. Well, here's how it works. Monsignor Burrell, who I've known since 2002 because he was a priest of the diocese, and we gather a couple times a year to have our convocations. Nice guy. Nothing special about him. Kind of milquetoast. Definitely not like me. And his homilies would have been very boring. But he had gone to the North American College in Rome. Now, when I was in seminary, it was always said, well, if you ever want to be a bishop, you have to go to the North American College. And I got mad at that because I said, listen, what are they teaching them over there that they're not teaching us here? What theology, what special classes, what higher grade professors, what tougher classes are they taking? Because listen, if I want to be a pastor of your souls, if I want to lead my faithful people to heaven, I want to know how best to do it. Why aren't they teaching us here what they're teaching them over there? Well, now I know what they were teaching over there. The thing is, and this is true too, by the way, when you're over in Rome, you don't even have to go to class. If I missed a class when I was in seminary for 6 years, the professors in the seminary wanted to know why. Why wasn't I there? Well, I was sick as a dog. I had stomach flu or something. I better have a good reason. There, they don't even check. Somebody else goes, they write the notes down, you just read the notes, and then you show up on test day. That's it. Because you're too busy learning other things. But here's the thing. So Monsignor Burrell gets back from that. He gets ordained. He's now a priest for the diocese. And this kind of stuff is going on. These little trips out to Vegas and stuff. Well, then, all of a sudden, he gets sent off to be a spiritual director at the North American College. And I say to myself, that seems rather odd. I know the guy. There are 37,500 priests in this country. And he doesn't even have a special teaching in spiritual direction. We're short of priests in the Diocese of La Crosse. We're working our butts off. Why is Bishop Callahan, who is a director of the North American College, why is he sending Monsignor Burrell over to be a spiritual director at the North American College? It didn't make any sense. Well, he serves us 3 years or whatever it was over there. He comes back. And he comes back and he's named pastor of, remember I told you we had 158 parishes. He's named pastor of the largest parish in the diocese. And I'm thinking, listen, I have my MBA in finance and accounting. I worked as an accountant for a couple years. I worked as a banker for a couple years. I've been a lawyer running my own office for 12 years. I have a certain skill set. Being a spiritual director does not necessarily qualify you to be the administrator and pastor of the largest parish in the diocese, but that's the parish he got from Bishop Callahan. Then he's there for a couple years, and all of a sudden he gets named to be the most powerful priest in the United States, the General Secretary of the USCCB. And again, I say to myself, what's up with that? Again, we're short of priests. Why does he get sent off? Callahan, what are you doing? We don't have enough priests, and you've got it now created a huge hole in the largest parish in the diocese. But off he goes there, whereupon it is discovered this whole grinder gate thing. Well, here's the thing. About the same time, in 2020, another priest in my diocese who actually did attend the NAC, he had brain cancer when he was over there. He suffered to this day. He's on medical disability. He cannot function in a parish. He was over there at that time, at the same time as Timothy Dolan was Monsignor and Rector of the North American College. You know, Timothy Dolan is the one who's popping the buttons on his cassock out there in New York, teaching us all that we need to know about fasting. Timothy Dolan was rector over there. This priest comes to my office at the rectory, and I've known him. He's probably the single best writer of icons in the country. They hang over in the NAC. They're in the Our Lady of Guadalupe. He does these commissions. I've seen icons around this world. I've not seen a single one better than the ones that this gifted, blessed man of God can write. So anyway, he comes over. He says, Father, I'm so upset. I just got my, I don't know if it's monthly or quarterly. You know when you graduate from someplace, they send alumni magazines to you. And what happened, he says this. When he was in 2002, when he was over there at the NAC, his best friend went to Monsignor Dolan and said, hey, Monsignor, I'm here to tell you that these two of McCarrick's boys over here are doing things with each other and other guys that they're not supposed to be doing. And he gets told, well, you seem to be lacking in charity, and you're too rigid, and you're too doctrinal, and therefore you are not a good person to be in a seminary, and so you must leave. And you must leave first thing in the morning, and you're not to tell anyone. Now, in seminary, for 6 years, I can tell you, every now and then, on the day board, somebody would just be MIA, and on the day board would be a little sign saying, so-and-so has discerned out of seminary. Well, so this guy went and said to Pauline, I've just been kicked out. I went to the rector, I told him about these guys, McCarrick's boys, and he kicked me out. So Paul helped him pack, and then he went down at 5:30 in the morning to say goodbye to his best friend in seminary. They didn't have the courtesy to send a priest down to say, listen, son, you thought God had called you to be a priest, and you've devoted your life to trying to be that. We've discerned that he hasn't, but we wish you well in wherever God leads you in this world. They didn't have the courtesy to do that. I think I told you that my bishop sent me my letter of cancellation by FedEx. He didn't have the courtesy to say it to my face. Anyway, that's the way these cowards are. So anyway, so Paul went down and said goodbye. Well, okay, so this is 2002. He comes to my office in 2020. He says, I'm just so upset. Because there on the cover was the newest big cover story headlines and story and pictures on the inside. The newest spiritual director for the North American College was one of those McCarrick's boys that were up to no good, and now he's named the spiritual director of the North American College. So now watch. Suppose Burl goes in, says to a spiritual director at the North American College, where this has been rampant, I'm suffering from same-sex attraction. What's he told? Well, God made you that way. Don't worry, the church is changing its teaching. What do we see in Germany and Austria right now? And from Bergoglio himself. So just stick with the program, try and be chaste, and the church is going to change its teaching. Okay. He graduates, he's ordained, comes back here, then he's sent back. Meanwhile, the person is writing down, we've got another one. So he comes back, he's a priest now for a while, now it's time to get another spiritual director. They call him up, hey, come be a spiritual director at the NAC. He's over there as a spiritual director for 3 years, and some young man comes into him. What's he going to tell that young man? The same thing that he was told. Don't worry, God made you that way. Church is going to change its teaching, stick it out. And then he comes back, and then we see what the spiritual director does, or who the spiritual director is in this cover story of one of McCarrick's boys. He's the newest spiritual director. So when I look at Jeffrey Burl now, I realize he's a product of the filth and corruption that has taken over the North American College in Rome. And I can understand why it is bishops come out of Rome, and why it is that the number is 88%. So I said it a couple times. Every now and then I get these interviews, and they show up on YouTube and other places. So I explained the same story to them on this video, this interview, as I just said to you right now. So I said, okay, I want to know, bishops. I've told it's 88% of you. But let's say that number's high. Why don't you tell me what that number is? Why don't you tell me it's only 60%? At which point I'm going to say, and how do you know? And why are you putting up with 60%? What if it's only 40%? How do you know which of those 40% in that room at the USCCB meetings are homosexuals? How do you know that? Do you chat amongst yourselves? I mean, if you're going to assert it's not 80%, it's only 40%, how do you know? And why do they still have a job? And why are you still covering up? Because we have $5 billion in payouts because you covered up, bishops, and you're covering up to this very day. How do you know, bishops? People wonder why I'm upset with bishops. James Martin comes out and says 40% of priests are homosexuals. He said that recently. I'm thinking, well, how do you know, James? But how do you know? But I'm telling you, if he had said 51%, you would have gone off, blown your stack. Because it's one thing to think it's like $39.99 isn't $40, right? When you're going to buy something. So 40% is an innocuous number compared to what if James said 60%? Well, you'd freak out. You'd leave the Catholic Church. You'd say it's become absolutely corrupted by this nonsense. But we have 5 billion reasons to know this is more true than false. And I want to know, well, what is the number? And why aren't the bishops or the priests doing something about it? There's a reason why there's a vocation shortage. Because men can see it. They can recognize it in the effeminacy prancing around in the sanctuary. And they watch. They really have a good relationship with the women, right? The older women. Because they're not a threat, right? So they get along well. It's like this is not a sexist or a gender slam. It really isn't. But you know how girls and women get together and they talk differently than the way men talk when they get together. Watch the priest talk with the women and see if he's in there cackling like they are. James Martin did that recently with these uninhabited nuns that were laughing about the fact that people were praying at the bottom of the hill when they were inviting James Martin to come speak at them. And it was raining on those people, those faithful Catholics, and they were cackling about it. And James Martin was cackling right in there with those old hats. It was, it's like women sitting on this isn't a slam. It's a picture that we have of like a cauldron bubbling and the witches are all Eye of Newt. There was James Martin just cackling right along with those witches. Watch them with women. Watch them if they act like men. Watch them in the sanctuary. No man is going to want his son hanging around that or being up there on the altar with that guy. And if men leave, men are the spiritual fathers of the family. And if men aren't spiritual fathers of the family ends up not being faithful. Because here's what's going to happen. Dad's not going to go to church. Why would he want to? And listen to that guy. That pansy sorority sister, right? So he doesn't go. So the sons and daughters say, listen, Dad's a good guy. He works really hard to support his family. He'd give me the shirt off his back. I come before him. He puts himself second. He's taking to me all my sports. He pays attention to me. He loves me. He's a good guy. So surely God's going to let him go to heaven. And if he goes to heaven and he doesn't have to go to church, I don't either. I'll just be a good guy like my dad. If the fathers don't go to church, the kids end up not going either. It's just a fact of life. So fathers aren't going to go to church when they've got some sorority sister up there on the stage. And women with their felt banners and acting as extraordinary ministers. Oh boy. I still haven't gotten to the main point I was going to talk about today, but it's 5:10, so is that enough for one day?
Yes.
Is that enough? It's enough for me if you're done. Keep going.